We're going to go through the Java database assignment. I am in my downloads folder. Maybe I'll put it in my USB drive, but I need a folder to store my project in. We need a project folder for this project only. Don't put any other files in here. So I will call this Java database. That is all I'm going to put in here is the database program. I'm going to right click, show more options, open it up with code. I don't remember if we've done this before, but regardless, when you get to a little more advanced Java programs, you have to put in kind of a standard folder structure. So one of the folders that we have is src for source. That means that's where the source files live. And everything is lowercase, and you do have to spell it exact. That's a file, not a folder. You have to spell it right, or Java will not like you. We need this one. A new folder, that's where our source code goes. I need to click somewhere else. I can make another folder called DB, which is, yes, where the database is stored. And we need another one called LIB, which is where our library is stored. We'll put our Java SQLite library in here because Java does not have built-in support for SQLite like Python does. I think of all the languages I've used, Python is the only one that has built-in SQLite support. Well, our next step is to download the JDBC Java Database Connector. I don't remember what that means, from this folder. So it's github.com/xerial SQLite-db/releases. Oh, looks like they just added a new one since I just did this. 2 days ago. Well, we'll hope the new one works. We'll see. Now we have to look around. There it is. There's our jar file. So jars are used for executables in Java. They're also used for library files. So we want to download this puppy and put it into our LIB folder. Let's see, my LIB folder is, I think I put it in here. Yep, there it is, Java database. There's my LIB folder. Fire she blows. When I go back to my project, there's my LIB folder. I can't open it up because it's a binary, like executable sort of a thing. And nothing shows up here because we haven't created any source files yet, which will be our next step. So Visual Studio Code doesn't know this is a Java program. We have our library file in here. Now we're going to go to the first step, which is creating our little program to see if we can get this thing to work. So we're going to need this little string later on. So I'm going to copy it, or I can type it in from scratch. It really doesn't matter. But I'm going to create a file called SQLite music.java because we're doing a little music database. Get that out of my road. In the source folder, we want a new file, SQLite Java, oh no, music. I'm going to call this one music 1 because this is my first version. And I press enter. And this gives me my file. We're going to do some imports to start with. Import java.sql. Notice how it kind of fills out and gives us a bunch of stuff as we're typing. We need a connection. So these are built-in Java pieces. Java does have SQL and other database functions in it. It just doesn't necessarily have SQLite stuff. And this is complaining because it's never being used. Well, that's fine. We haven't got to the part where we're using it yet. So we import java.sql. What's the next one? Driver manager. And then we import Java insists that we handle exceptions from SQL. So we have to put an SQL dot SQL exception. Yeah, SQL exception. Whoops, wrong one. SQL EXCPTION. So those are the imports that we're going to need. We also need our class. So if we start typing PUBLIC class, we want to make it the same name as the file name, SQLITEMUSIC1. Curly braces. There we go. Now, if you remember, Visual Studio Code has a shortcut for PSV. There it is, where it says PSVM. If we press tab, it fills out all that goop for us. And we don't have to type it all in. This all does have meaning, but another day we'll look at the meaning of it. When you're using the database connectors and drivers and all that stuff from Java, it insists that you use try catch. So if you try to do this without it, it's going to be insistent and say, oh, you've got to do this. So we need to do a try block. And right here, if I cursor down, press tab, see it builds my little try block for me. Well, in our case, for our SQL, we need to specifically handle the SQL exception, which is all we're going to worry about for right now. And we're supposed to handle the exception. So put an E there. And yep, it's never thrown because we don't have any code up here. It's giving me all kinds of trouble. So I'm going to just do a stack trace for right now. This will print out a stack trace if there is an issue. Stack trace meaning what you would normally get if you were not doing it. I have another thing in there where I just say something went wrong, you get message, but you can add that in later. So we do have to handle exceptions. Well, it's time to get rid of all these squiggly things. We're going to create a string. URL just means Uniform Resource Locator. It does not have to be a web address. But we do have to put in the right string information. So we have to reference JDBC, which is the built-in Java database connector. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's called a connector. Now we have to say what kind of database are we working with? SQLite, another colon, and then we give the path to the database. There's our little folder that we're going to store our database in. So we put in the path to that. /db/ and I'm going to call my music database music DB. So that is our URL, which shows us the physical location of our database file and what type of connector that Java is expected to use. Which in this case is SQLite. Next step. Create a connection. This is using the connection library that we imported earlier. Connection, I'm going to call it con. Now we use the driver manager to connect. Driver manager dot get connection to the URL. And we don't need a password or users or anything because we don't have any of that in our little database. So we just need URL and the arguments. And good. And then semicolon. See, things are looking happier. There's not so many ugly things going on and red squigglies and all that. We still have something here. This is just saying our connection is not being used. What actually is being used, we're making a connection. We're just not actually doing anything with it. So I'm going to say here, so I know it connected, system.out.println. Println, I'm going to say database connected, because if the database is not connected, it's going to create an exception and it's never going to get to this line. Just like in Java, we need to close our connection. Otherwise, we leave operating system resources hanging, and that's where we get memory leak. So we are connecting. Java is not really connecting to the database directly. Every programming language uses the operating system to connect to resources. So when we're saying connect to this database, we're giving commands to the operating system saying, open this resource. And when we're done with the resource, we want to close it, because if we don't close it, well, maybe it'll just kind of hang out for a while, taking up memory, which is not necessarily a very good thing. Well, I'm down to no errors down here. If I look down here, I have a Java project. Here's my standard Java library 21. Here's my reference library. There's my SQLite. So I'm referencing that library. How am I referencing that library? Well, Java knows that it's there because it's in the lib folder. Now, all things being equal, which today has not been equal, this should work. All right, well, I was hoping this wouldn't fail because everything else I've done today has failed. We run this. It runs, it says database connected. And when we look in our little database folder, there it is. Everybody's happy it worked. Da, 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 da. Happy days are here again. Okay. Well, we have our database. Now we need to create some tables. This should look familiar. Oh yeah. Tables are tables. SQL is SQL. Well, SQL is SQL. How we create a multi-line string in Python and Java is different. So that is our multi-line SQL string. Oh, no, it's not. This is, oh, it isn't like that. All right.